Jim, how's it going?
Hey, how are you today?
Hey, doing well, thanks. You have a good Easter weekend?
I did. I had a wonderful Easter. And how about you guys?
We did. Yeah, a lot of family time, looking for eggs with the kids.
I love that.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Do you have any kids yourself?
I've got three boys. Hold on just one second. Let me answer this call and put this link into. I didn't notice until the last minute there wasn't a Zoom link um,
Yeah,
in
no worries.
chat. All right. Hopefully everyone finds their way here.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on with my Calendly, and I love Calendly. It's probably the most valuable tool I have to keep me on task. But the downside, and it's not just Calendly. There's a lot of them out there now that are doing it. There's absolutely no real people to speak to anywhere that I've been able to find.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. Everything's becoming automated, which
Yeah,
is
and
which
for the easy stuff, I think that's great. But
yes.
for the stuff that you just can't seem to, after an hour of hunting, I think that there should be a little leeway there. It says, man, there's a bot on here that says this guy's been looking for this answer for over an hour. He's clicked through 7 articles. Let's step in and help him out.
Yes. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. There's apparently the AI exists already that can gauge uh, your frustration and that will then boot you out of the automation and to speaking to a real person. And so I am very, very excited about that. I've not seen it work. I've only seen demos of it,
Mhm.
which the demo, of course, always works perfectly. It's like the self-driving car.
Yeah, unless you're Bill Gates.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's a pretty cool tech that they're doing that now because it's so annoying just to sit there and be like representative, representative,
Yeah,
representative.
yeah. That's exactly the kind of thing it's looking for. It's looking where you are repeating the same thing over and over and over again, or it knows that you keep pressing zero over and over and over again, or he even hears voice inflection. So, as an example, if I really start to get irritated, it notices that difference and then automatically boots you out of the system and into a customer representative immediately to kind of de-escalate as quickly as possible the frustration.
That's a smart approach, I think.
Yeah, I think that it was if more of these companies start to implement this, it's gonna be a game changer for everybody. I just don't know where it's at in its actual is does it already exist? Is it already there? Does it already work?
Hmm.
If you remember the even voice to text today, it's been around for at least 15 years, and I don't know that it's a ton better now than it was back then, but it's definitely better. Still has a long way to go. So if the AI is like that, then it might not be that useful and it might not be worth the money yet. But it's very exciting for sure.
That's awesome.
So I'm trying to see who are we missing here.
I
It's
think Flint's the only one not on, but I don't know if he's going to be joining us today or not.
okay.
And then I assume NAI St. George is Kevin.
Yeah, I can't get the webcam to work, and I don't know why. Sorry about that. Oh,
No problem, sir.
technology.
All right, gentlemen. Well, if we're not going to wait on Flint, the floor is all yours.
All right. So I wanted to give kind of an update of what's going on with you, Jim, and where we're at right now in the Aurora property, and then kind of your thoughts. So I submitted an LOI, have lots of LOIs I use for my normal day-to-day with pretty good terms in there for things like extensions, renegotiations, as we get more into the due diligence of the property or at least more information about it. The broker said that they liked the offer price, but the owner did not like my terms. So two of my terms pretty much were one that, and these are pretty creative / aggressive terms. The property was losing tenants. And so it went from probably closer to a 10%, 8 to 10% economic vacancy. Now it's about 15 to 18%. And so I was just pushing the terms to see if the landlord would guarantee any leases or tenants, or at least try to tenant it up more than it currently is, to help with Julie's underwriting or the other lender's underwriting. And so that was kind of my positioning on it, was trying to get that in place, but they didn't like either of them. And so, which is fine, because we underwrote it under the assumption that with Julie's price quote, it still would work. We were just trying to see if we could make it a little bit better or easier to get. And so that's kind of what Mike has been doing recently. He's been putting a lot of effort contacting local lenders in Colorado to try and see if they could have different terms, more aggressive terms. But I think Mike can tell you kind of his experience with what we're seeing from the lenders so far.
Yeah, not as favorable as Old Capital overall. I mean, they seem a little more flexible in terms of loan to value. They're quoting up to 75% on loan to value. I think as it relates to the fixed rate, they're more around 5, sometimes up to 7 years fixed before the refi, and they're looking at about high 3s to 4 in terms of rate goes. But I mean, I think that kind of, as far as the fixed refi for 5 to 7 years, is a little more, I think, difficult for us as we, if we plug that into our model and we think about our investment horizon on that. But that's kind of generally what we're getting. DSCR is about 1.2 to 1.25. I just had one bank kind of do their own underwriting, and it came up as 1.19, and so they politely passed. That was based on historicals. They don't look at pro forma data, and we only have a year's worth of historicals right now. So I'm waiting for another bank to come in this afternoon. They said they should, afternoon or evening, they said they should get me a quote on from the information that I gave them. So hopefully we can see what that's going to look like.
So these are our local banks, recourse loans, or?
Yeah, these are local banks that I've been looking at. The one who passed, I spoke with today, who they basically passed on the deal. He said he's got he's close to somebody at US Bank who he's going to reach out to just to see if they can incorporate pro formas into their underwriting process for a deal our size. And he'll let me know if that person is good to go or not. Mm-hmm. I can go from there with US Bank.
And what did Julie quote? I'm assuming it was bridge debt.
Julie quoted 65% LTV. Let me know if you can't hear me.
No, I've got
65%. Okay, good. 65% LTV with APR right around 3.9 to 4 for a 10-year fixed term. And so, you know, so looking at the SDA and kind of the estimates, we need to hold the property at least 7 years to get the returns to look good. And so it would be year 4 refi, if possible, and then hold it for 7 years. So I was just a little bit worried about the 5-year loans. That seems too short in case we have to, you know, push out the refi for a year or two. I know the property's smaller, but this is gonna, you know, you're 50% invested in the stake of this, and we want to make sure there's enough time to renovate, restabilize, and get it kind of resituated before having that big pressure of, you know, the refinance on the property.
Yeah, and you may find that you don't want to refinance. So, you know, based on what rates are at that time,
Mm-hmm.
you may just need to get a supplemental, you know, to try to return capital. But that's something you know, at least have the flexibility of looking at as you move out. So,
Sure.
okay.
That makes sense.
So when did you guys submit the LOI?
It was submitted 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And so right now, where are you? Are they waiting? Did they come back with adjusted terms and are waiting for you to respond? Or where are we in the process?
It was pretty much that. They showed the offer to the owner. The owner liked the price, but he did not like the contingencies in there. And so they're still basically waiting for us to come back with a different LOI without the contingencies.
Okay, so the owner didn't actually, did not say, yes, I'll accept this LOI and mark off these pieces. Instead, correct, he just put you in a position to resubmit.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know, that's not the most ideal, but it's better than flat out rejection. So,
right.
So that's kind of what we've been doing. They're giving us time to talk to these other lenders just to see if we can get a little bit more favorable terms right now. But
so the issue that you're going to have, you said the economic vacancy is rising. So that in and of itself is going to make it difficult for lending, and is probably why Julie is where she is, you know, with this. And also when you're under 5 million, that's a very tough product class for most bridge lenders. Most of them prefer to be in something larger. The other piece is, have you put together a kind of a rough business plan or scope of work for the property?
That is what I'm working on at the moment. I was going to ask you some questions about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a bridge lender will definitely want to see that before they'll move forward. Okay. And so that's something that you need to, I mean, even if it's very rough, I'll give you an example. You can go on to the platform and pull up any pitch deck that's, and if you don't know where to find the pitch decks, they're in the folder that says deals that you can invest in as an LP. Uh-huh. And look at those pitch decks and you'll see the business plan most of the time is one slide. It's not real detailed. Okay. And you would like for it to be a little more detailed than what most pitch decks have. Mm-hmm. But literally it can start with a one-pager that says, we're going to spend X number of dollars on these 5 items. Okay. And that's our business plan. And by doing that, this is the expectations that we expect to receive from them. So if one of the business plans, one of the ideas on the business plan is to install washer and dryer, here's how much that's going to cost. And you're in the SDA, you've got under other income, a $50 rent bump associated with how many of those you actually plan on doing. Okay. You know, this is a small property, so it's not going to have a pool, but it may have a common space, you know, that you are just going to put up a small pergola with, with a barbecue grill, and that's going to cost X number of dollars. You're going to repaint the facade. That's X number of dollars. You're going to put on a new roof. That's X number of dollars. You're going to spend so much money on landscaping. So any of the CapEx type things, that's the business plan and scope of work that you want to start with. You don't have to have the whole thing completely, it doesn't need to be to the detail of month by month, but at the very least, start with that one pager and get that to Julie as quickly as you can. And then as you build it out, you can update it and send it back to her. So you always want to be giving her, this is the most up-to-date business plan, the most up-to-date financials, the most up-to-date information that we have today. Because each day, you want to know what the lender is thinking on that day. You don't want to wait until the lender gets to the end and says, okay, now give me all this. And now it's going to slow down the whole process. And you're going to have to ask for an extension, and then you're going to have to pay money for the extension. So you want all of these things kind of up front and in front of her as much as you can.
Great. That's great to know. I've been working, she helped me with a little bit of kind of a starter structure on how to start doing the business plan. I didn't realize that it would be good to have that early. So thank you for that. One question is, so I know there's a bunch of CapEx that needs to be done. Should we try to get inspectors over there now, or should we just try to estimate?
So remind me again of the type of CapEx that you're expecting to have to address.
So there's 2 boilers, roof, and then metal work for the walkways and the surrounding fence. And then potentially replacement of the windows as well.
So I don't think you need to go to the level of detail of actually having bids. At this point, I think that you could maybe bounce the idea off of several different vendors and just get rough estimates. And most vendors, the rough estimates tend to be high anyway. Sure. But if you want to pad it, just add, an additional 10 or 20% to, whatever they tell you. And I think that that's probably good enough to start off. If you have vendors that are willing to give you actual physical estimates free of charge, then absolutely, schedule it in. But it may be difficult at this level because the owner may not want to give you that level of access.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So the broker said we could probably have access to 2 or 3 units, but that was about it.
And I would advise you, if you do a tour and you get access to 2 or 3 units, bring as many vendors on site with you as you can to get their feedback. You want to take advantage of any site tours by having as many of your people on site as possible. Don't rely just upon your own eyeballs and take as many freaking pictures as you can. Hire a high school photography student to come along and take a video, and so that you don't have to. A walking video of everything that you see. Have another one that is taking a picture of every electrical panel, every air conditioning data plate, every boiler data plate, every hot water heater data plate, as many data plates as you can find of the major mechanicals, so that you can get an idea of what that scope of work might look like over the near term. And I would also, I would say, send me, if you didn't already, send me a copy of the LOI, just so I can have an idea of the kind of language that you're looking for. I would, if I were you, I would include at least 2 things in the language. One would be early access, so that you don't need to wait for due diligence, because you can do pre-due diligence if you have early access once the LOI is accepted. Once they accept the LOI, you want to have with 2 days notice, the ability to get into any unit.
Okay. That is a great idea.
And what was there's one other thing that people have a tendency to leave off of their LOIs. And I was just telling someone else to do it. Where are my notes? Bear with me for just a minute here, gentlemen. Oh, make sure that in the LOI that you have a statement that takes the deal off the market. In other words, if he accepts your deal, he agrees not to cease and desist trying to sell the property to anyone else. So something along the lines of, once this letter of intent is executed, the seller will not engage in further negotiations with any other potential buyer. And then you can put a time frame on it if you want to. I usually like to leave it open, but if you get any a pushback from the seller, then you can say, okay, for at least 21 days while we try to negotiate a PSA.
Sure.
But try to leave it open-ended.
That's awesome. That's great. I really like that. All right. So I know a lot of people do this, and I was going to ask you about it. When we're looking at one property, should we be basically focusing just on this property and not trying to move on other stuff as well? Or should we be putting LOIs in another property?
I would constantly have my oars in the water.
Okay.
If you take your paddle out of the water, the boat's going to come to a standstill, and it's only going to go forward one each, So if you have 15, 20 people paddling this boat, you don't all pull your oars out of the water at the same time.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you want to keep, once you've got some deal flow, you want to keep that going all the time. You don't want to be start, stop, start, stop. You want to just be a steady flow all the time. So you're constantly putting LOIs in. Worst thing in the world that could happen is you get 2 of them accepted and you don't feel confident that you can take them both down. So then you can turn right back around and wholesale one of the other ones to someone else. So make sure that you always put aura signs on all of your contracts and all of your LOIs.
Great. That is a great advice. All right, and then we're getting a little bit of pushback from some of the lenders wanting a personal financial statement from you as a guarantor. Should we tell them no, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, I don't provide my financials until we're actually under contract with that lender. Once we know the lender and we want to go with that lender, but I'll also tell you that you guys know that I only do non-recourse loans.
Yes.
Now, Julie has been talking to me about a blended loan. Some of these smaller assets, she's having a hard time getting them done with the traditional lenders. So she started looking for some different alternatives. And she's found a few banks, I don't know who they are or where they are, that have said, look, we still want it to be recourse, but we will underwrite it as if it were non-recourse, meaning that we'll underwrite to the property instead of the individual. Because that's the big reason you want non-recourse, is you want them underwriting the property, because otherwise you're going to always run up against, okay, your debt to income ratio is too high. My debt to income ratio would not qualify me to buy anything at this point in my life, and probably would not have allowed me to buy anything in my name for the last 5-7 years. And the reason for that is that I'm on a lot of deals that far exceed my personal debt to income ratio. And so that's what drives people to non-recourse lending. You can't do these size deals on your personal income.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Sorry, this is just wanted to clarify that. So you're saying it's a recourse loan, but it's underwritten as if it's a non-recourse.
Yeah.
So, but the recourse part of it is, I mean, they don't go after your personal assets. They go after.
Yes. No, they will. They will. That's the recourse part of it.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, all four of us signed on a recourse loan, but they agreed to underwrite it. Let's say we did not qualify for the property using their normal underwriting procedures, which was
Right.
debt to income ratio. So they agreed to underwrite the property. But if something goes wrong, they're coming after all of us, every single one of us, everything that we own. So when you do that, here's the big problem. You put in jeopardy everything you own. And that's not just your own personal stuff for me. That's every deal that I'm on with other people. And that's the big reason why I don't want to do recourse loans. It would have to be, I'd have to have more than one of my attorneys look at it before I would agree to it. You know, I'd want language in there that says, you're only going to come after my personal assets. You're not going to involve any of my other partners. You're not going to involve any of the other deals that I'm on. You know, you're only coming after just me. You know, that kind of language.
Okay, so you're not telling Julie, oh, that sounds good. You're just telling, you're just giving us.
I told her no at first, but she's finding it more and more deals that just don't fit. So she's trying to be creative to find ways to still get the deals done. And so she keeps bringing it back to me. We have discussions about it. And so I'm a maybe at this point. I'm not a hard no anymore. I'll listen.
Slowly warming you up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. She's reeling me in very slowly.
As long as that loan product and property do not affect your other ventures as well.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me, Kevin, is I don't want to jeopardize. If I'm trying to help 10 other people get deals done, I don't want one deal to jeopardize their deals. You know, that wouldn't be fair to any of them. You know, they didn't sign up for that. They signed up for, look, Jim signed a non-recourse loan for us, and we should be isolated and insulated from all of his other deals. So I would definitely want to see that kind of contractual language, even if it were a recourse loan.
Perfect. That makes sense. I can completely understand that.
Yeah, because you also got to be careful that once you open that door a little bit, it ends up opening pretty wide.
Yeah, it's very hard to close it once it's open, and it's very hard to hold back the tide from them just pushing it wide open. Yeah. So I'll tell you guys from the standpoint of, I would probably, if I were going to try to pursue other banking relationships, I would probably pursue all of your local credit unions would be my first priority, because they don't operate under the same rules that banks do. They're not held to the same standards. Even though they probably follow most of the same rules, they're not required the way a bank is. They can choose to be a little riskier if they want to. And you can approach a credit union and say, you know, look, we're looking for non-recourse loans. We're looking for like a business loan that doesn't require us to put our personal assets. In other words, you believe that the asset alone is protecting your position, that if you needed to repossess this, that you would be in a good enough position that you would say, okay, without having to take my house and my business and my car. And I don't care what that looks like. Would you say yes if it were at 10% LTV? Well, yeah, of course we would. Okay, would you do it if it were 20% LTV? Well, sure. Would you do it at 50? Probably. So it's just a negotiation, right? We already know that they would do it, even though most of them will tell you right out of the bat, no, we don't do that. You know, so be a little creative in how you talk to them, you know, and if you can find one that's small enough that you guys actually know, you know, for instance, I would call it normally a bank president. I don't know what they call it in the credit union. Yeah, board of directors. I have no idea what you're even called, you know, but if you happen to know someone like that, you'll get a lot further along having that kind of conversation. Because you don't want to tell Michael, who has to explain it to Adam, who then tries to pitch it to Kevin.
Very, very much so. Okay, that's a good idea. Mike, have you reached out to any credit unions, or have they been more traditional banks?
No, I think they've been more traditional banks. I don't think I've talked to any credit unions.
And I'll also tell you that if they want to work with, if you have good contacts like that, you can also engage Julie and say, Julie, is it possible for you to reach out to these 4 credit unions and see if they would be willing to do something for us? Maybe you can get further than we can because you're Old Capital. That wouldn't be beyond me either. You know, I don't know that if she will. I've never asked her to do that, you know, but I know locally in Texas, they have a lot of credit unions in their back pocket for doing smaller deals.
You think Texas credit unions would be cool with a property in Colorado?
I don't know the answer to that. I've never asked her that. You know, we've been going from the assumption that we were going to try to find deals that really fit inside Freddie's small balance loan product or Fannie's small balance loan product. But they are getting, right now, I don't know why, but they're getting really, really tight. And you can see by the loan valuation that she has here. Some of that is probably the size of the loan. Some of it is probably the market, you know, that they are not as familiar with the market, or it might be the asset class. But, you know, each one of those things they have a scoring system, and each one of them has their own scoring system, and they'll tick things off, you know, and automatically, even though you are bringing me to the deal, the fact that you guys haven't done this kind of deal yet will automatically chop off X number of points, you know, and that's just something you have to deal with the first deal, you know, and it'll get better each deal. You know, you'll move up that chain each deal and get a little bit better terms on each deal.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and that's another reason too, Kevin, not to do one deal in Aurora and then do another deal in Texas and then do one in Virginia. You know, you'll get better terms if you do another deal in Aurora and go right back to the same lender and say, look, you know, you charged us X on this last one, but you know, you've been with us now for 4 months. You've seen we've made these changes in those 4 months. We've got another deal. It's right in the backyard. There's gonna be these efficiencies. We're not gonna need additional people because they're in the same submarket. You know, there's a lot of good story to tell by staying in that submarket and staying with that lender.
Okay, that's great.
Do you ever
that makes a lot of sense.
You ever see banks being willing to negotiate on those fixed terms, you know, 5 to 7 years versus 10 years, or are they usually just bound by their bank policies versus the credit unions, to your point, being flexible?
Yeah, most banks, these are internal policies. They're not external policies, but the vast majority of it is driven by the fact that they're going to the secondary market to sell these loans. And so unless it's a portfolio loan for them, if it's a portfolio loan, they can choose to be a lot more flexible. But so right out of the gate, you know, if you want to try to get past some of those limitations, just ask them right away, do you make portfolio loans? And let's talk about the flexibility you have within the portfolio loan product.
So when you say portfolio loan,
it's a loan that they're going to keep in-house. They're not going to sell it on the secondary market. So they can kind of be flexible and play a lot looser with the terms if it's something they're keeping for their own selves. I would also, that's particularly if you're dealing with the branch manager or somebody that's an executive of the bank, I would start asking if they have any of their high net worth individuals that would be interested in offering private equity or would be interested in holding a note. Those are great places for you guys to raise capital. And that capital is a lot cheaper than trying to raise the money in a regular PPM syndication model. Because if you can pay somebody a fixed rate of 8%, that's a lot cheaper than having to pay them a pref of 8% plus 70% of the equity at the back end. If you can get a high net worth individual that has, even grandma that has $500,000 tied up in a CD, you know, and she's only earning 10% or 2% on it. Maybe the bank president would say, yeah, you know, Mrs. Adams over here could really use an 8% note, you know, and we're only able to offer her 2%. So she might very well be interested.
So you're saying that we would just kind of leverage them to, like, if we can only get like a 35 LTV or something, we're trying to get to 25, maybe we just bridge that 10 percentage point gap by offering an 8% loan to.
Yeah, I'm saying always be creative.
Yeah. And
realize that most people you're speaking to are not. And also make sure that that's a question you're asking, because even if you don't do a deal with that bank, you still want to keep building that relationship. And even if they can't help you with the loan product, they might be able to help you with a few high net worth individuals, you know, and make it worth your while. You know, if they give you somebody like that, make sure you go back to them and do something for them. You know, buy them a nice bottle of wine, give them, you know, a round of golf. You know, make sure that you go in and you know, take a box of Krispy Kreme donuts and a giant box of Starbucks coffee. You know, make sure that they know that this is something that you want to develop this relationship. Keep giving me this kind of private money. And even to the point of trying to leverage them into getting in your deals, because they'll be a lot more flexible to trying to push the underwriting if they're on a deal with you. You know, hey, what if I, you know, would you be able to raise capital? Would you be able to raise capital with high net worth individuals that maybe have a ton of money locked up in real small returns, and as a piece of our team? You know, if we could give you a small percent of equity to do that, is that something you would be interested in doing? You know, just be creative with it.
I like that. Thanks for the yeah, thanks for letting me outsource that creativity a little bit to you. Those are good ideas.
Those are really good ideas.
It's like you've done this before.
Well, that's all I have. I just wanted to get some feedback on the business plan and LOI. And so what I'll do, I know for myself, is get the business plan at least finalized for the moment, send it over to Julie, and then I'll revise the LOI with the terms you just suggested. And if there, I guess we're good to go to submit the LOI to get under contract and due diligence. Then, if Julie's underwriting works for it.
Yeah, if Julie's underwriting works, guys, and you know, you're comfortable with the price, and you know, you know, kind of have, if there's no reason to say no, you know, then move ahead.
Okay, that sounds great. Guys, do you have any more questions?
Nope, not at this point.
No, yeah, I don't have any at this point. Got about a full page of notes though, so thanks, Jim. Some good stuff.
All right, guys. Well, you know, my calendar is open. So and one thing for sure that you want to do, if we get an accepted LOI, you want to get in my calendar and put a regular weekly, at least once a week meeting in my calendar, so that we have something scheduled, so that because we don't want to be in a position where I've got, like, right after this call, 4 more back-to-back calls, and we can't get on a call for something we absolutely need to be discussing. So
that makes sense.
Right.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, we'll be pretty diligent to sign up for multiple meetings just to block those times off with you.
fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you
Okay,
much.
Appreciate your time, Jim.
All right, Jim.
And
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin,
Yes,
are you planning on using that same LOI format or a different one?
I can change the format to make it easier to read. I know that one's pretty complex.
Well, if you're planning on it, I would just say, if you want me to give you any feedback on it, just shoot it over. But I would definitely include those 2 clauses that I mentioned at the very least.
Okay, I'll add those and send it over to you to review.
Okay. All right,
All right.
guys. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
All right.